Hey guys, Sierra Bailey here with Accel Commercial Real Estate. The video you're watching ties into our event in June, Accelerate. If you want to learn more about what you see today, scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the description to get your tickets now before early bird pricing runs out. Enjoy the video.
Our guest tonight is a good friend of mine. I've known him for several years, and he is an outstanding individual beyond just what he does. He's really good at what he does, but he's also a good person, and he has one of the best sense of humor of anybody I know. And
she needs to get out more
I do need to get out more. His name is Paul Kraft. And he is an estate attorney, but that's not all he does. Part of his secret sauce is he's also a realtor, and he does a lot of real estate law where he helps people with evictions. So we're gonna get a double dose tonight of his expertise. And he has some really fun, his hero origin story is pretty awesome. So I'm gonna let him give a little bit about that, and it'll help you understand why he really truly does have a servant's heart, and he's all about helping people protect their families and their assets. And I think when you hear what his story is, you'll understand a little bit more about that. Then I'm going to turn the time over to him. He's going to give a presentation, and we will have a question and answer portion of that. And my Director of Operations, if you can monitor the chat on that so that we can get the questions answered. For all of you folks who are online, welcome. We're happy that you were there, and welcome to Accelerate to Generational Wealth, our learning series. And I give you Attorney Paul Kraft.
Okay, thank you very much.
Shift into the
sure. And to everybody online, thanks for being here. There's the camera here, but primarily I'm going to be talking to the folks that are here in the room because, well, they took time to actually drive here, and the rest of you are sitting maybe in your bathtub or just watching TV as you listen to me drone on. So most of my folks is going to be here, but we haven't forgotten about you. And this is, in the Zoom era, spend a lot of time online. A lot of courts have gone to online now, and so I've done a lot of streaming online stuff. This is the first time since March that I've worn a suit jacket, tie, and actual suit pants. Most of the time it's short, so this is a little bit different. And Janice said I got about 45 minutes, and then when I told my wife, I said, she said, how long are you speaking? I said, about 45 minutes or so. So that's good. You lose people after 45 minutes. I said, I don't. I lose them after 5 or 10. 45 minutes, there's no problem there. So, and Janet was a little bit too humble about herself. Like she said, we've known each other a number of years, have had mutual clients, and Accel, her real estate company, what Janet does, they're phenomenal. They really are very good. So don't let her downplay that. Both her and Brian are a great team together. And everybody uses different terminology. Somebody's a bulldog or somebody's a shark. But I mean, Janet's more like a python because she comes in nice and stealthy. Sometimes underestimated. You don't recognize the potential risk that you're in when you're in negotiation with Janet. And she squeezes just enough of the deal to make sure it stays alive, but not dead. So Janet's phenomenal at what she does. So what she asked me to talk about was two things, estate planning and landlord-tenant stuff. So a little bit about me. I'm a licensed attorney and real estate broker, both in Tennessee and California. Moved here from California about 12 years ago. My wife and I packed up our family and moved out this way. Before I went to law school, I was a police officer in the Bay Area. So if you're familiar with the Bay Area, there's San Francisco. On the other side of the bay from San Francisco is Oakland, and just south of Oakland is Hayward. And so I was a cop in Hayward for about 6.5 years. That's where I met my wife. She was a dispatcher. We met over a homicide. The Hallmark movie story. It's okay. She was acquitted. It worked out fine. No, she was a 911 dispatcher on a homicide call. I was a police officer, and that's kind of how we first got to meet. If you want to know the full story, you'll have to tune into part 2 next time we have this series. But after being a police officer, I went to law school. I've been investing in real estate myself since about the mid-90s, before I even went to law school or got my broker's license. And I've been an investor in real estate, since about 96, 97. So I've got experience both on the personal level, doing it myself as well as helping others do it. Been doing wills and trusts since about 2002, and been doing real estate as a licensed broker since about 2000. So one of the things that's important for me as I work with people like yourselves that have accumulated wealth is it's one thing to accumulate it, but the next question becomes, what are you going to do with it, right? And so I kind of like to follow the philosophy of get, grow, and give. So you acquire these assets, as you go through life, you grow them, but ultimately at the end, you can't take it with you. So it's got to go somewhere. And so what I'm all about is making sure that people have effectively planned to give those assets away. And so as part of that, and as part of my real estate broker stuff, having come from California about 8 years ago, we're helping a lot of Californians move here to Tennessee. And so my wife and I actually have a podcast called Exodus California, Exodus California, moving to Tennessee. And we work almost exclusively with Californians because we can speak Californianese, lack of a better term. So we'll have somebody, say to us, well, hey, what's Gallatin like? Well, we can say, well, it's kind of like Elk Grove. And they know exactly what we're talking about, whereas people that aren't from that area have no idea. So we do a lot of that as well. So again, I think I bring a lot of practical experience to it as well as intellectual knowledge about it. So let's talk about estate planning first. And let's talk about wills and trusts. So both California and Tennessee have very unique laws when it comes to estate planning and when it comes to landlord-tenant stuff. So I'm going to try and talk about both states, because I know there's some people online that are from California or living in California. Maybe some of you here have assets in California that you're still managing or dealing with. So each state has its own unique laws when it comes to wills and trusts. Everybody here, everybody listening online, you have a will. Even if you don't know it, you haven't written it, you have one, because the state that you live in has written one for you if you have not taken the time to write it. And everybody thinks, well, if I have a will written out, then my estate stays out of probate. And that's not true. All a will is written instructions to the judge that say, Judge, ignore what's in the probate code, this is what I want. And so there's two main avenues that people use to distribute their wealth once they've passed away. One is a will and one is a trust. Now, if you have a will or you have nothing, your estate's likely to go through probate. Now, I'm going to say this caveat at the outset that will apply to everything. There are exceptions to every rule, number one. Number two, while I'm a licensed attorney, licensed real estate broker, I am not a CPA. So I can answer some general tax questions, give some general tax overview, but I can't really give tax advice. So I say that with this caveat, everything I say needs to be run by your particular tax advisor and make sure it fits your particular situation. Having said all that, a will and a trust are both ways that you can leave instructions behind as to where you want your stuff to go when you pass away. The will's going to go through probate. The trust, by and large, if it's set up correctly, will not. One of the things that people like to do is, they'll go online, they'll do a LegalZoom, or they'll do their own, will or trust. And that's fine. I get a lot of calls from people saying, well, can I do that? And the answer is, of course you can. Everybody has the right to prepare their own legal documents. You can represent yourself when you buy or sell property. Of course you can. But I kind of equate it to this. It's like working on your own car. So there's plenty of people who are qualified to work on their brakes. They do a great job. There's never a problem. Other people shouldn't be allowed to pick up a wrench. I don't know what kind of person you are, but if you're the type that, shouldn't be allowed to work on cars, then maybe you shouldn't be doing your own will or trust. Because just like brakes and wills and trusts, by the time you find out it was done wrong, it's too late. By the time your will or trust is not done right, you're gone. And once you're gone, it cannot be fixed. It becomes irrevocable and unchangeable at that point. So the will and the trust are designed to pass your assets the way that you want them to go. Because right now, under both Tennessee and California law, and almost every state's the same, every probate code only allows your estate to get passed to your blood relatives and adopted relatives. So where a lot of people get into trouble is you have a husband and wife come together and they have children from previous relationships. And they don't do any planning. They just assume, well, gee, my spouse will do the right thing, and when I pass away, they'll make sure that my kids are taken care of. Under the probate code of both California and Tennessee, if husband passes away and wife does nothing, and then wife passes away, 100% of the estate goes to the wife's kids. and the husband could get nothing, even if the wife had the best of intentions in doing something like that. So the only way that you can give assets to a non-adopted or non-blood relative is through a will or a trust. So if you want to give money to a charity, so if you have a favorite church, favorite nonprofit organization that you want to give money to, the only way to do that is through a will or a trust. If you want to give money to a non-relative, maybe a cousin, niece, nephew, your favorite attorney, the only way to do that is with a will or a trust. There's no other way outside of that to accomplish that. And what I get with a lot of people that I meet with that have amassed real estate, they sometimes want to give a piece of property to a niece or a nephew that's just getting started, or maybe somebody that helped them fix up that commercial property, work on that, and they're just getting started. So the will or the trust are designed to do that. One of my favorite wealth transfer tools is the trust. And there's a couple of reasons. When an estate goes through probate, the value of that estate is what determines what the probate fees and costs are. And if you have a $1 million estate in California, it will probably cost somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 to probate that estate. That's money that comes off the top that goes to people you don't know, like attorneys, courts, or referees. People that you've never met are going to get, $30,000 to $50,000 of your estate. And by the way, that's gross value, not net value. Remember, attorneys write the laws. Attorneys make sure they get paid. So the attorneys that wrote the law say, "Whoa, we're not going to take the net, because if you got $1 million property and it's mortgaged for $900,000, what does that leave us? That only leaves us $100,000. But we're going to take off the gross." And so all these fees and costs are based on the gross value of the estate. That's how come you can end up with probate estates that you hear about being upside down or worthless, because after you take out all the fees and costs, it's eaten up all that equity and there's nothing left over. And so Tennessee has the same thing. Tennessee's fees and costs aren't nearly as expensive, but it's still an expense that can be avoided with some proper planning. And ultimately what you want is to pass your estate down to the people that you know and love and care about, not people that you've never met. So the way that the trust works is you do a trust, you put your assets into the trust. While you're alive, you're free to revoke that trust or amend that trust at any time. So one of the things that my wills and trust professor said is the number one reason why kids get disinherited is that they don't call their mother. So if you don't call your mother, I will. So, and my wife tells me all the time, she'll say to me, "Hey, our kid," I won't name our kid by name, "Kid A didn't call me today. Change the trust. Kid A forgot my birthday. Change the trust. Oh, Kid B remembered. Change the trust." So it goes both ways. So I don't even know how many amendments we're up to now, but so it's a completely flexible document. The other nice thing, and Pat brought this up earlier, is that with the election of the new administration, there's likely going to be some changes in estate planning and wills and trusts and the federal tax law that go into play. And the trust can be designed to really help you maximize those exemptions and to sometimes even double those exemptions. It used to be, and we don't know what the laws are going to be, but the way the laws were back in the 90s was you could actually use a trust to double your estate tax exemption. So you could pass twice as much tax-free to your heirs. If there's some big change in the administration and tax laws that would necessitate that, estate planning attorneys will likely come up with some formula or some system to be able to maximize that. Because remember, you're not doing all this work. You're not attending these seminars, going out and looking at real estate, managing real estate, working with people like Jen and Brian to give your money away to people you've never met. Whatever money you have, whatever assets you have, I guarantee you they are better used by people that you know than by some bureaucrat in Washington or Nashville. I can assure you that. Take the worst person you know and they will manage that money better than any government official. So part of what I'm passionate about is making sure that the government gets as little as possible, because they already have more than they need. They don't have a spending problem or a revenue problem, they have a spending problem. I want to make sure they get as little as possible and that your assets go to where you want it to go. So with a trust, you can set it up however you like. You can give your property wherever you want it to go. So you're not restricted on who you give your assets to. Again, family members, non-family members, corporations, nonprofits, whatever you want to do with it. The other nice thing about a trust versus a will is that a trust is private. Your will is filed at the courthouse when you pass away. There's an inventory that's filed at the court that tells the whole public everything that was in your estate. Now, if you've been a successful real estate investor and acquired a real estate portfolio, there are real estate investors, for lack of a better term, that go down to the courthouse and they go through those files and they look for estates that have property in them. And then they start to call the kids and the beneficiaries and say, hey, I see that mom and dad own 123 Main Street. Sorry to hear about their passing, but I can take that property off your hands, all cash real quick. And aside from the fact that the kids have, lost mom and dad and they're dealing with that, now they've got this real estate person calling them up, it's probably not the best time for them to be making decisions about what to do with assets. My advice to people, and this is free advice. The rest of this stuff y'all are getting a bill for, but this part right here is going to be free. Is when you have a death in the family like that, try not to do anything for a year. Just try to let things mellow out a little bit, because in my experience, that first year I see people make a lot of mistakes. And there's times where, look, you have to do something, right? You have to sell a property and you contact Jen and she'll make sure it's done right and she'll treat you right. But if you can hold off, wait a year, let things kind of mellow out a little bit. There's rarely any rush to do anything. But you will get investors calling kids and saying, hey, I can help you out with that property. And maybe you don't want the whole world to know whatever it is that you own. I mean, you acquire these assets. Maybe you don't want it out there for public record. Maybe you don't want people to know what your kids are getting. I mean, all of a sudden, maybe your kids went from average middle class, maybe now they've got $2 million in real estate portfolio. And the whole world knows that. And so maybe now there's other investors that come along and say, hey, listen, why don't we take some money out of this property and put it over here? And there's a lot of coercion that can take place, and you can really protect your family from a lot of that through the use of effective estate planning.
Thanks for watching this video. If you like what you see, be sure to follow our Generational Wealth Learning series. On select Thursdays, we offer cutting-edge industry information that would normally cost thousands of dollars. And the best part, our education is absolutely free. If you register through our events page, you can join us live, either in person or over Zoom. In the meantime, like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a beat.